Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Maritime SoftwareHub, the People Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Nigel Lee, who's the Chief Strategy Officer at Robosys Automation. Welcome, Nigel. Thanks for coming on the show. Today we're going to be talking about your background from submarines to autonomous shipping, and it's a really exciting space. So, thanks for coming on, and I'd love it if you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your career journey.
Yeah, no, cheers. Thanks, Callum. Thank you for the opportunity to take part. It's my first podcast, which is super exciting for me. My background is split between 23 years in the military, so I'm Royal Navy. Joined at 16 as a young lad during the Cold War as an engineer and served on board diesel electric submarines. So in 1989, I was up north near the what was the Soviet border in those days, but under the water. Transferred to nuclear submarines when the Berlin Wall came down in late 1990, and then went for a commission as an officer. So I went from being an engineer to a warfare officer, so driving ships and becoming a master mariner. At the same time, also learned to control fast jets, fighter jets. So not an air traffic controller that keeps them apart, but as a fighter controller that actually brings them together for intercepts. So after 23 years, the last 2 years at the Navy headquarters in Portsmouth, I started my own company doing online marketing. And just before going back to sea again, I had 75 customers, so I resigned after a 23-year career in the Navy and into the big, scary world of civilian life in sales. Realised quite quickly I was used to being a big organisation. The Royal Navy had, 70,000 people. And within that, there's squadrons, within that, there's ships, within that, there's departments, etc. And that's the organisation I was used to. So quite quickly made the jump from being self-employed, own company plus one, to joining Ultra Electronics, so Naval Combat Systems, a UK FTSE 250 company. And immediately, everywhere from the Caribbean through to Indonesia, travelling the world for combat systems and naval electro-optics. So in the maritime space, the maritime security, the defence space. After 4 years, got a better offer from Lockheed Martin, so joined Lockheed Martin in the UK as part of their national security division for 5 exciting years, and then fancied change. Again, that was mainly UK, Europe. Very interesting business in the cybersecurity space, which obviously is, when I was there, was 2011 to 2015. Was very new, very exciting, and Lockheed Martin owned the cyber kill chain. But then wanted change and joined a division of Cobham, knowing there's a change program from a sales perspective, knowing the amount of salespeople compared to revenue. So took the offer, and I was proved right. Within 2 months, we were divested and owned by a private equity company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So for 6 years, I have the scars on my back from working in sales, in private equity, orders every week, every day, every month, every quarter, etc. But thoroughly enjoyed it. And the company was in the radio space, IP radio, mainly focused on security with some military. And that really was the rise of autonomy at that time. So what was that, 10, 11 years ago now? So pivoting the company into mesh radios to support unmanned systems, air, land and sea. Then we got divested or acquired by an Australian PLC. So very fortunate to take my equity and joined Robosys, who I'd known as my customer. So the CEO, CTO and founder, Aditya, and I used to meet in Abu Dhabi. Over 11 years ago, so came on board as a director, shareholder, and the chief strategy officer. So been here just over 4.5 years now. So that's really how I got to the position and the role that I'm in now, which is software for unmanned systems for autonomous boats. Which, given the geopolitical situation where we are today, unfortunately, the unstable world as we are, there is a huge demand for autonomous boats.
Yeah, I mean, a fascinating journey, and I think anyone that's kind of has served and had your background, I mean, that's incredible. I've never had any kind of military experience myself, but my uncle was a doctor, and he ended up being the head of the medical corps for NATO for a few years. So he served in Kosovo and Bosnia and Venezuela and different places. So kind of had some insight from his perspective and the impact on his family and everything. So I'm sure you've got a lot of fascinating stories, and I'd love to hear more about that maybe in another time as well. But
Yeah, and just on that note, if I can, Callum, what's interesting is 18 years now industry. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. You meet people who are ex-Navy. I may have served with them, may not. You still bump into people all around the world you serve with in America, in Thailand,
yeah,
etc. But there's that type of camaraderie that you've just been talking about. So, I spend a lot of time with Robosys in America, speaking to the military there. And although I'm not US Navy, it doesn't matter, I'm ex-Navy.
mm,
Although I'm not US Army, it doesn't matter, I'm ex-military. So there's always that kind of band of brothers and sisters as there is, wherever you go in the world. So, yeah,
no, it's
good
fascinating.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're obviously Robosys now, and you're chief strategy officer, so you're playing an integral role in the growth and the go-to-market strategy and that type of thing. So I would love it if you can give us a bit of an overview of Robosys, the business, and kind of the problems that you are aiming to solve in this space.
Yeah, we're a software company. We've been through various iterations over the years that really went to market, go to market, since early 2022. Software predominantly in the remote control boat, autonomous boating space, autonomous surface vessel space, but also a bit of a systems integrator because we have to advise boat manufacturers, well, if there's nobody on board, who's going to watch the alarms for the bilge alarm, etc., and what sensors you need,
Mm,
because there isn't an officer watch or a captain keeping an eye out. You need a sensor suite, etc. So software, but we do trusted advisor, systems integration, experience to help our customers on their journey. It's a couple of areas we work with, both unmanned and manned, because in the larger ships, the vessels, safety is obviously paramount and avoiding running aground and collisions, etc. So our software can provide collision avoidance advice on the bridge of big ships. So on some larger ships, you have some commercial partnering arrangements,
okay.
but also in bridge simulators. So a lot of simulators, whether it's Australian Maritime College in Tasmania, or Maritime Research Institute in the Netherlands, or BMT here in the UK, are using the software to help build trust in AI because it's the AI algorithms that suggest the best course of action. So in big ships as a bridge aid, as a decision aid, and then also in the smaller vessel, both military and commercial, to help. It could be a 3 meter survey vessel, it could be a 6 meter effector vessel, it could be a 14 meter surveillance platform. And
Yeah.
it's very topical right now. You're hearing about the Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz, and they're all about sea drones to do mine clearance. So that's exactly
Mm,
the kind of application the software can do. So it's helping with safety and reducing risk. There's a big shortage out there of bridge watchkeepers today. So anything we can do with our software to help provide an extra on watchkeeper all the time on big ships is enough where we help. So reducing manpower. But really, the key way to remember what we're doing is we're automating the dull, the dirty, and the downright dangerous.
yeah.
So there's a lot of operations, barges or dredging, where it's just backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Well, perhaps that could be automated. And that's what we're seeing now. Rather than have 5 people on the platform, perhaps have one. A good example, I was in the Royal Navy, as mentioned before. We'd take a minesweeper to the Mediterranean, and we'd be doing survey operations at 4 knots, at 3 knots, with 45 people on a very expensive warship. If anything did happen, and it was to detonate against a mine, there's a loss of
Mm,
lives, a lot of platform. You
yeah.
can now do that 24/7 with a 6 meter USV with nobody on board from ashore. So that's that kind of dangerous and dull operation that can be now automated with the software that we provide at Robosys.
Okay, that makes sense.
Fascinating subject.
No, it is
All
definitely,
day on it.
and I mean, it's something I've been exploring more and more further. I mean, people that are tuning into this, they may not be aware that I run a recruitment agency is my day-to-day role, and called Beaumont, and we help maritime software and autonomous shipping companies hire sales professionals mainly. And we've been doing a lot of digging into certainly areas like Rhode Island that we discussed earlier,
Yes,
that kind
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
pool of companies and businesses and around Virginia and Washington DC. There's a lot of companies, and then even here in
Yeah.
Tampa, we've got a few. We've got Sail Drone and a few other businesses that have presence in this area. So it's an exciting space. And I mean, you mentioned there a little bit about the application, the practical application of unmanned vessels, but are there any other ways that people are utilizing the unmanned or the autonomous vessels at sea? Would you say?
Yeah, So we split it really into the commercial and the military. The commercial, we're seeing a lot of survey operations. So the oil companies, the offshore, need to know annually where their pipelines are, have they moved, etc. So having a small platform that can go out autonomous or remote control. I mean, we've got a customer, for example, in the UK where they used to send a team and a hydrographic survey boat to Africa
Mhm.
with the security that was needed to protect the vessel and the personnel from landing.
Yeah.
They now send a 6 metre vessel out to the west coast of Africa. The survey operators sit in an air conditioned room in the UK, and
Hmm.
the vessel's protected by a person with a gun and $1 a day to look after it. But the safety has been reduced down. The cost of survey operations in the commercial, we're seeing a big increase in that, and that cuts across to critical industry infrastructure, the protection of our pipelines, our cables globally from the threats that are out there. So a lot of survey really, and now what we're starting to see is, and they're the smaller vessels, they're kind of these 6 to maybe 14 meter vessels. But now we're seeing adoption of slightly bigger. So some of the commercial or CTVs, crew transfer vessels, are now starting to explore. Well, they're monotonous transits backwards and forwards. Can they be semi-autonomous? So onboard autonomy, which then builds trust at this stage before maybe going fully autonomous, takes the pressure off the captain, who's perhaps is captain of one, so there's an extra set of eyes.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing the commercial world has been quick to take to market and use in applications, and it's those survey. It could be, we talked about oil and gas, but it could also be for unexploded ordnance. So before putting a wind farm up, you have to do a seabed survey for bombs, for unexploded bombs. That cuts across to the military, Straits of Hormuz. Look at Ukraine in the Black Sea. How many unexploded ordnance or unexploded bombs are there in the Black Sea? So there's one example, which is, or a couple of examples in commercial. In the military, definitely a take up. Ukraine has obviously, with the Black Sea, seen that the one-way effectors,
Yeah.
the small V5 going in against bridges, etc., and warships. Um, And given, unfortunately, the situation around the world, if it's the South China Seas or Eastern Europe, there's a huge, and the North Sea, the North Atlantic. So there's a huge requirement for military when we do surface, above the water, unmanned surface vessels, the software for that.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's autonomy underwater as well, a huge amount of UUV, unmanned underwater vehicles as well. So the two work together, but we're predominantly in the surface space at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, and then there is the move now is to the larger vessels. So we are seeing the greater than 24-meter vessels, particularly for resupply across long distances, which again are dull, could be dangerous, etc. So the larger vessels are now being looked at, depending where you are in the world, because regulation will restrict what you can and cannot do.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I mean, obviously, you've got hands on a career as a submariner and in the industry. So, do you see that there's any kind of pushback from people saying, "Hey, look, the autonomous side is very interesting and growing, but it is actually taking jobs away from the seafarers"? Or do you feel like there's not that doesn't come up from what you're seeing?
Um, no, because as mentioned at the start, there is a shortfall in watchkeepers, bridge watchkeepers,
Yeah.
STCW, and the ability to recruit. So there's a twofold action here that actually, when I was in the Navy, I'd be away for 6 months at a time.
Mm.
Now you can be the operator of a USV, a bit like a drone that's over the Middle East, controlled from Phoenix, Arizona. You could be in charge of an unmanned surface vessel, but doing 6 hours and then going home and picking up the kids from school.
Yeah.
So actually, you can still be a mariner, but you're a shore mariner now in the remote control and autonomous world. And then at the same time, when we're providing collision avoidance decision advice onto bridge ships, we're helping the more, cognitively burdened, overloaded watchkeepers, and there's fewer watchkeepers coming. So tying in with that, our software has a number of watchkeeping simulators, because it's helping those colleges, those universities, those organisations that train bridge watchkeepers to
Mm.
show them what autonomy can do and build trust in it. So you can maybe hit the button at the front of the bridge and carry on with some mundane job, or actually more important paperwork job, while the software is keeping the vessel safe and will warn you if anything's happened. So they're using it to build up trust, and they're also using it to test. So, for example, they want to know that when the advice comes, it's the correct advice. So we're being tested and tested and tested,
Yeah.
because these universities, these colleges, these simulators are building up their own experiences and confidence for their watchkeepers. And just aware at the time, I got, and everyone likes a story. The Australian Maritime College in Tasmania have been really good at this. They've got 6 simulators, and they put 4 humans into each, one each in 4. And then 2 of them, they put our Voyager software in. So basically you had 6 simulators, 2 run by machines and
Yeah.
4 by humans. Now, what you can do is you can set the parameters of the software to suit the vessel. So let's say I'm vessel 1, but I'm slightly older than you. So my reaction time, I'm going to be more cautious. So my collision avoidance range is going to be a bit more, and my reaction time is going to be slower. So I might alter it earlier. Whereas you're young, so you'll take more risk. So your collision avoidance might be slightly tighter, and you're going to leave it to the last minute, which means you and I would drive a ship different.
Okay.
So those 4 humans were driving differently, and the Maritime College set the 2 machines slightly differently, and then they ran the same scenario. They couldn't see each other, but at the end, they ran all 6 units at the same time. And they're trying to get the humans, the students, to spot the machines, and they couldn't. Because the same as, the humans have a bell curve, of extreme at either end, and most people fall in the middle. The machines are in the middle, and that they couldn't work it out. So it helped them build up trust and understanding. And it's that story I've just told you about the different risk factors. Humans approach risk slightly differently. The
Yeah.
Colward's collision rules are not definitive, so we'll all be slightly different. But that's what they're doing, and that's an exciting project, and for humans to see that and then understand it, and I start to trust the system.
I think that's a very interesting angle. I mean, we've seen some of our clients actually that we hire for, like
Yeah.
Napa Group. They
Oh yes. Yeah.
a big part of their kind of strategy is going into universities and colleges, getting the students familiar with their
Yeah.
software right from the beginning, and then hopefully that kind of pays dividends later on, that they're very familiar with things like 3D CAD design technology and things. And it's a really a great angle, I think, if you're close to
That's right.
those.
Introduce them to technology early on. Yes. Yeah.
And that's
Particularly
brilliant.
at the speed it's grown with AI, the adoption of AI as well. Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then now, obviously, in your role, if we don't mind, if we move on to that little part. So, I guess as Chief Strategy Officer, do you mind just giving a quick overview of your main kind of day to day and the function in the business?
Yeah, I mean, number one is sales, and there's an interesting story there. My first title was CSO, Chief Sales Officer. So
Yeah.
sales is a dirty word; people don't respond to it. So we changed the title to Chief Strategy Officer, and people respond. So,
Interesting.
but there is more to it than just sales, because business is about sales and revenue, profit and cash. So it's about finding the opportunities. So business development, capture, and sales, and then but also it's product development, product management, because a lot of sales is having 2 ears and listening to the customer requirements. And it's important to capture those. So spend a lot of time with proposals. There's not just a quote for software, because we're helping customers with their problems. We're listening to their different engines, their different propulsion systems, their different steering systems, their different sensors, and what level of autonomy do they need. What we've done is we've got the full high-end autonomous software all the way down to just remote control. So a lot of it is spent listening to the customers, working through and understanding, and then working with the technical team to make sure we can deliver, understanding the milestones, we can hit the deliverables through the program manager. And then I'm the director in the UK office, so we've got a team in the UK that needs managing and the facility that needs managing there. So we've got a place in Rhode Island, and we talked about that earlier. So to your point, we're going to meet in Florida in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully, in Tampa.
Yeah.
But we've also got an office in Rhode Island, because the amount of support that the state of Rhode Island Commerce have given us, we've taken a facility there as well. So we're scaling up in the US this year, and we've done quite well over the last 6 to 9 months. So it's the long-term strategy, the CEO, CTO, and myself, to look at the 3 to 5 years, how we're going to grow, the areas we're going to go into, and the focus areas as well, because it's not just scattergun. We're focused very much on North America, so you'll see me in America a lot of the time. Also UK and Europe only, really. That's the focus. So it's being focused, planning 3 to 5 years ahead, looking after the business development to capture the sales. And then also what's important is the handover to delivery, to program management. Because business is all about being open and honest, being proactive, making good on commitments, and managing expectations. So there's often, I've managed sales teams as large as 22 before now, and a lot of it is about what's said but not written down. So it's very important when you get a purchase order, when you get a contract, there's this handover between what the sales said to what program manager is going to deliver with the customer in the middle. So there's no ambiguity, there's no confusion.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's my day job.
Yeah. And if you were to break those kind of customer verticals down, I imagine it's a mixture of defence, commercial, maritime, but also some partnerships there as well.
Yes.
So, what does it look like in terms of the strategy of the type of kind of end user you're speaking to?
Well, because we're software, I say we're tier 3. So a tier 1 is a prime system integrator. It could be a Lockheed Martin, a Raytheon, a BAE Systems. A tier 2 is an integrator, really. And there's a number of those around there. But we supply a software component. So our customer is going to be a tier 2. So an integrator or a boat manufacturer. So that's the focus, is we need to target USV manufacturers or boat builders that are going to build USVs and help them. That's if we sell our product, but we can also pull apart the software. So there's some of the primes and system integrators we can go after with just parts of our software, because there's often a buy or build decision as companies scale. That they think they can do it. They don't necessarily want to open up, so maybe they just take part of our software.
Okay.
And then on the commercial side, it's mainly the USV manufacturers there again, predominantly. But then, because our software is also on larger ships, on bridge systems, now there's integrated bridge system manufacturers, there's ECDIS manufacturers. So there's a whole change there, and that's really about partnerships. So we've got enterprise license agreements out with a number of customers now. So, and it's back to that balance. I talked about geographic focus, North America and UK, Europe. There's also, we can't boil the ocean. Our software could go onto every electric drive that's out there and become a digital autopilot. But we don't have the bandwidth to do that. You have to, as a small company, you have to focus. And that is the secret of sales and the business strategy is focus will breed success. Else we all get distracted by noise and nothing gets done. So I don't often deal with end users, but I spend a lot of time with military end users, because we go along to support our customers who are building a boat, building a USV, or their systems integrate. So it's quite exciting going out to some of the places and the camps in America, etc. But our customers are mainly the USV manufacturers or bridge systems integrators, etc.
That's right. And I guess that might be, you obviously saw my recent conversation with Takaro Blue and
absolutely, I did.
Those sort of companies. So fascinating space. And I guess in terms of it'll vary depending on what I imagine that you're selling or the module. Yes. But what's the approximate kind of sales cycle, would you say, for each part that you're selling?
So the longest has been, I think, 4 years.
Okay.
That's to get integrated into a bridge system. And the shortest, I think, was 3 weeks.
Okay.
And again, this is a really good point you bring out again. You can tell why you do the podcast, Callum. The focus is geographic, North America and UK, Europe. The focus is on the commercial survey, really, and the military, and then the big ships through partnerships. But the focus also has to be on a balanced portfolio, you can't just go after the big ticket items because they take 4 years and the
Yeah.
business would go bust. So you need what's called flywheel income. So you need these ones that will close in 3 weeks that might be smaller in value, but they come around much more frequently.
Yeah.
So you need a balanced. So it does, on average, I'd say it's generally between 9 and 18 months to close. But we are seeing an acceleration in that now. Now we're putting part of our software into little modules. The sales cycle is reducing down, but the volume opportunity. So the initial sales small, but the volume opportunity is huge. So it's a delicate balancing act.
And then the implementation afterwards, roughly what does that look like? Do you have a kind of professional services team or customer success team that looks after that, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, we've got engineers really. We've got deployment engineers and development and software engineers. And how does that look? It varies on the shorter sales cycle tends to be the much easier capability, plug and play capability.
Yeah.
So I think the one that we closed in 3 weeks, they actually deployed within 10 days. So they were happy for their first deployment. Some of the longest depend on how complex it is. And quite often we're waiting for the boats to have the engines installed, to have
Yeah.
the steering system installed. So there's a lot of delay. So although we might say it on a big program, it's 3 to 4 months, it can be ended up being 6 to 12 months because of delays in the production of the boat itself and completion of the boat. And then we get to a time of the year when it's too rough for the boat to go in the water. So we're quite beholden to the customer and how they're progressing with their build.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think something we haven't really also mentioned as well as another benefit it is kind of the decarbonisation piece that ties to this. And I'm seeing companies like Fleet Zero and these other unmanned vessels that also have battery power essentially. So
Yes,
have
yeah,
you
yeah.
touched into or kind of spoken to any kind of partners in that particular area yet?
Yeah, we've done a couple of projects. So the USV that was going out to Africa was actually a hybrid, so it's a diesel electric.
Okay.
So, and that's a good example where they wanted remote control, but they also wanted autonomy of the platform, as in, well, when the battery gets to 50%, can you start the diesel generator? Yes, we can, but only start the diesel generator if the seacock is open. So that's all digital logic that need programming. So there's an example of electric hybrid. Yes, we're seeing a lot of prototype USVs using electric drives at the moment. And then we also run a couple of Innovate UK grants. So a CASI grant and Oracle's grant. And one of them is looking at, because we've got automatic path planning, long and short path planning. So to do the voyage from New York to Southampton, it will automatically, the software, plan the shortest and safest route.
Yeah.
And then en route avoid collisions and objects. Therefore, we can put layers of data, environmental data. So as part of the grants, we've been looking at putting weather overlays or looking at the vessel performance to keep emissions down. So
Yeah, great.
absolutely. When I was in London, it's always a good job of strategy sales as you get to travel around in London for the Innovate UK launch of Zevi 2 Day, which is the clean maritime demonstrators and the or zero emission vessel infrastructure.
Yeah.
So yes, no, we're definitely in that space. How much is AI and autonomy compared to how much is novel fuel cells or energy, etc.? We are definitely a part of it, but not a big part of it. So
Yeah.
definitely.
No, it's a really, I mean, that's our world to a point. A lot of our clients are focused on decarbonisation
Okay. Yeah.
and weather routing and vessel voyage planning, that type of thing. So it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got companies like Sirocco and Weather News and Ascent
Yes.
Mallorca, these
Yeah.
businesses. So it's great that you're already involved with them.
Yes. No.
Cool. All right. And I guess now just a little bit more on how you're building out the sales function, I guess, and appreciate, I'm not probing for hires or that sort of thing at the moment, but in terms of how you, over the years, let's say maybe in sales leadership roles, have you typically opted to choose or hire people from the industry that really know the space, or do you just go for kind of pure technology ability or technical skills? What's your
I think
approach?
it's about talent. Is it again? There's a a story of everyone likes a story, everyone remembers a story. I was in an expo and someone was trying to sell me a conference, which I had no interest in. But after the third attempt, I said, "Stop! You're obviously good at sales." And they went, "No, I'm getting you to sign up for a conference." I went, "You're good at sales." And encourage them to submit their CV for a sales role, which they'd never done for products around the world.
Yeah.
And they ended up being the best salesperson I ever had.
Wow. Great.
But after 3 years left because they wanted Lockheed Martin on their CV, so they went to a big
Okay.
defence prime. So it's about, particularly sales, is about tenacity
Yeah.
and having two of these and one of these, because you have to listen to the customer requirements. Because actually, I might be we in sales might be solving lots of different problems, but it's the same product you've got. You're just listening and fulfilling the customer's needs and wants and requirements. So it's really about talent. I'm also, when looking, it's really, have they changed jobs a lot? That's really concerning because, you could pay to hire and then, 12 months later they're off. So being stable in jobs is really important. Being tenacious, listening is important. Yeah, and I think actually finding sales is quite hard because sales is can be an all-encompassing term. It's about resolving ambiguity. Enough a story at Lockheed Martin, I was a capture director. Or capture, I was hiring a capture manager. Now, business development, capture and sales all goes into the same kind of bucket, really, of personnel. And I was Lockheed Martin interviewing someone from General Dynamics to be a capture manager. And I said, "Can I just stop you? What's your understanding of the role?" Well, they thought they're going to be out front with the customer, having dinner every day, having drinks, understanding. I said, no. Lockheed Martin captures is sitting in a bid and proposal room for 16 hours a day, drinking Red Bull and eating pizza till 2 a.m. A very different job.
Yeah.
So when you say sales, there'll be people that are out there that are business development that generally, again, these are sweeping statements, will generate a pipeline. So they'll find the opportunities. Sales are generally closers. So a really driven coin operated, want to make commission, want to earn money. And then capture is somewhere in the middle, people that love to do bids and proposals and work between business development and sales, etc. So you've got to find the right person for that particular role because a lot of people have business development when it's a sales role. A lot of people have sales when it's a BD role. You just need to make sure the role is right for the person. And again, what motivates people? Again, enough a story. During lockdown, our team used to travel the world, and all of a sudden we couldn't. So we're going to go bust. What can we do? So I ran customer focused sessions, which means we had a bingo board, and all the salespeople on teams were running a competition. I was running the competition for the day, and they got 1 point for a phone call, 2 points for an email, 3 points for a quote, 4 points for an order. And at the end of the day, one of the most points won a prize. And the finance director said to me, "Nigel, we seem to be more successful because they're getting £100 Amazon voucher rather than 2% commission." So it's interesting what drives people as well. So back to being coin operated, that was really interesting. In lockdown, it was Amazon vouchers that drove the sales team and not actually the commission they got at the end of the sale.
Yeah, no, I think that kind of more instant win or instant hit makes it a bit more tangible, I think.
Pound on the table today rather than £2 tomorrow, yes.
Okay, awesome. All right then, and I guess, in terms of going forward then, where do you see kind of Robosys and the next sort of 3 to 5 years, and maybe not just the company, but also the market? How do you see it kind of developing?
Well, we're staying purely software, not building boats, not building USVs, which gives us lots of opportunity. And we're seeing that to go off into tangents because there's so many sub-elements of our software that can go into different, as I said, we could just go into a digital autopilot, a very small part of technology, and that could go into the recreational space. We haven't touched the recreational space. We are now working with some leisure sport fishing boat companies that want autonomy or remote control autonomy. So that space, I think, is going to grow. That adoption is going to be quicker and higher volume because the recreational market compared to the commercial is massive. The commercial compared to military is massive. So I don't see any. I see an increase in military activity, so there's opportunity there, more and more capability there. I see the adoption of bigger ships in the commercial world becoming more autonomous. What does that mean for Robosys? Well, it means we're going to grow. We're going to be at more strategic partnerships. We'll be more embedded in other people's software. And I think we won't just be in the autonomous space because we're seeing functionality of our software into different applications. So we're going to stay purely software. We may end up in the future at some point, that there might be a commercial division and a military division. Who knows? 3 to 5 years is a long time in this world, particularly with AI technology, etc. That's obviously we want to grow. We are growing year on year, and the aim is not to stand still, but to keep doubling year on year, and find a strategic partner for us.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, and what sort of potential challenges do you see, like in the industry as a whole, or anything that could impact success?
Well, I think at the moment, one of the challenges, and I was talking to a company yesterday, and it's not necessarily the best technology or the first to market that gains the traction. It's the best marketing company that gains the traction. And what's been happening is there's been a lot of snake oil, vaporware, lots of promises that haven't been fulfilled. And do you remember I said about that when you go have a kick-off meeting with a customer, it's all about that, managing expectations, not mis-selling. So now, because of 4 years and we're building that traction, we've got the credibility, maybe not the marketing machine behind us. So that's been, I think, restricting some capability, because it's not those that have got the best capability get it deployed. It's the best marketing machine gets their limited capability deployed. Now that smoke is starting to clear and people are starting to understand that, so the small voices can now be heard. So yeah. I think that layer of obfuscation has now been removed. Technology is going from prototype to production, and they're understanding you need something that works. And that's where we are now. So I think that's been removed. The other obstacle isn't global, but regulation, particularly in the commercial sector, is still. So there's companies in the UK that have sent their vessels USVs to Australia because it's easier to do sea trials there because of the regulations. If you look in Northern Europe, Finland, Denmark, Norway, it's much easier to do USV testing there than it is here. There's companies that are pivoting to the US as well as Robosys that are finding it easier, not so much regulation in the US. So regulation is going to change massively. It's going to have to catch up. Because technology is starting to move at such a pace that regulation is going to have to catch up, or else you're going to hold back.
Yeah. Okay. And on your first point there around, the adoption of technology and also the promises that we're seeing, I think from a talent perspective as well, people are getting wiser themselves. And you talked about when they're looking and maybe changing career, that they now know that maybe in previous roles they've been kind of maybe not missold, but they've been told the solution was a bit further along than perhaps it actually is. So I think the people that are also in the industry selling the solutions are also wising up to the fact that, 2020 to kind of 2023 or so, there was a real big drive. And now I think people are kind of getting a bit more wiser to what's actually kind of happening and things. So it's not a challenge, but it's just something we're seeing.
Yeah, and that's back to your question about hiring as well. Is hiring is a two-way. So because there's nothing worse than hiring somebody and you as the employer have sold them a dream and it's fake. That is totally wrong. So for us, that's something you must, be open kimono as such and say, this is, any questions for us? This is actually what the business is like. That's really important. But also the workforce is more savvy. I think we talked about lockdown earlier, but more transient as well, more open to shifting jobs as well. So you've got to make it really exciting for them to stay, or else they'll be off. It's very hard to find good people. It's even harder to keep good people. So.
Yeah, makes sense. Good. Okay, and then just final point. I guess if you look back throughout your career so far, and I mean, in terms of perhaps leadership, Are there any lessons you've learned that maybe we can try and pass on to people that are leading sales teams? Any kind of, I'm sure there are a number of examples you could share, but any kind of, any things you could try and, any way you can try and guide them?
Yeah. First thing isn't, and took this from the Navy, is those that drive warships, those that are captains of warships, are there because they've always got plan B and C in their back pocket. So my mantra from that really is, to succeed, you need to plan for failure. So because, no plan is going to stand contact the enemy. It's the same true in industry. You've got to have plan B and C ready to go at all times. That also allows you to be calm and measured because you've planned for something to happen. You have it in your back pocket ready to go. Resolving ambiguity is key as well, because we do collision and obstacle avoidance for our software. And I asked a customer the other day, what do you want? I said, oh, we want obstacle avoidance. Well, for us, that's easy. That's just static objects. But when I asked them what they wanted, they meant ships and boats as well. So you mean collision and obstacle avoidance. So resolving ambiguity is really key. Having plan B, C, and D as backup is really key. Being proactive and being tenacious, particularly in sales. I've been after a company for 2 years. And finally, after 2 years, they responded to my 2nd of December email this week.
Yeah.
You've got to be tenacious. And as I say I've supported I've been in many companies, and I've been advisor to many companies as well. As I say to MDs and CEOs, is you just got to keep chipping away. You're not necessarily top of the in tray. You just got to keep chipping, and hopefully one day they'll be sat down having a cup of coffee, and that's when your email lands. That's when your phone call. And that's the other thing. Is you can't just email in sales. Try it 3 times, you normally get an answer, but if not, pick up the phone. People buy from people. They always do. People want lowest risk, build that rapport. People buy from people.
No, I completely agree. And my background is shipbroking, and it was all 100% people focused. And that's saying my grandfather would always say, like, your reputation can take a year to build, but then it can be lost in seconds and things. So
Seconds, absolutely. And that brings us back to the military thread, is there's also that reputation. You've got your military word as well. That's always there. Your band of brothers and sisters. You can't afford to lose that either. Yeah. Okay. That's a nice segue back to the beginning where we started. I was age 16.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nigel. I think you've shared some really, really interesting insights. I've learned a lot, definitely. And this is a space we're watching very closely and excited to see how it grows. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Robosys, or maybe give us a guide of how best for people to contact you if you have any questions?
Yeah, well, we're growing the team at Rhode Island. North Kingstown in Rhode Island. We've got the facility at Hamble in Southampton, in the UK as well. Easiest thing to remember, well, we've got an online presence at robosysautomation.com. The brand's on the t-shirt, so you can see it quite easily there throughout. But just reach out, and there's a sales inbox as easy as sales at robosysautomation.com. We're always looking for new talent. We're definitely growing, that's for sure. And if I don't hear from you, Callum, I'll be seeing you in Tampa, I hope, in 2 weeks' time. I look forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. No problem. I'll be in touch, and this will go out next week, so I'll tag you guys and everything. But thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Nigel, and Nigel, we'll speak again soon.
Great. Take care. Thanks, Callum.